Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs. All right, welcome in to the Arrowhead Addict podcast, Thursday edition. Sorry about the false start for those of you who are waiting to watch the show live. My internet decided to go straight into the toilet, much like the Chicago Bears, right before we went live. So had to do a restart, but we're back. And I'm here and joined by my good pal from Sports Illustrated, Matt Verderame. Verderame, how's your week going, sir?
It's going well. It's not going to go well tonight when I'm covering the Commanders-Bears game. I might actually tell SI they're going to have to pay me double for that game. That game is going to break my will to live.
It's a tough scene.
Otherwise, the week has been good. The old man's still out here. We're going to Arrowhead next Thursday, so looking forward to that. Hoping it doesn't rain. Apparently, it's in the forecast. But otherwise, yeah, good. How are you? Other than your internet being dial-up at this point?
Yeah, it just took a dive on me. Don't know what happened. We aborted at the last second. I'm doing well. Going to my wife's theater company's show tonight, so I'm going to take off right after this podcast. Excited to see that. It's called Blues for an Alabama Sky. If you're in Chicago, it's open for a couple more weeks at the Remy Bumpo Theater Company. Be sure to check that out. But speaking of pain, I thought we should just look at the injury report real quick here, Verderame. Thursday injury report came out. Not too much pain here for the Chiefs. Nick Bolton's back, but he's still limited, but that's a good sign. Everybody else was a full participant except for Wanye Morris, who wasn't on the injury report Wednesday, was limited on Thursday. Do you think he'll be active this week?
Yeah, I do. I would say that it's very likely Watson's playing since he practiced fully today, and it is pretty good chance Bolton's playing. I mean, usually if you practice on Wednesday, unless you go backwards, usually you play.
Yeah.
So I would expect that he would play. Yeah, I think the only pause I have is that they play 4 days later and it's a divisional game, and so maybe if it's like iffy, they go, well, one more week. But the fact that he practiced Wednesday would lead me to believe that it's more likely than not that he'll play.
Yeah, and I think the Chiefs have been pretty cautious with him, so they're probably just easing him back in to make sure he doesn't have any setbacks in practice. I wouldn't be surprised if he's full go tomorrow. And frankly, they're going to need him because, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but the Minnesota Vikings can move the football. So the Chiefs need the leader of their defense back.
And they have to because they can't stop anybody.
Right. And we're going to get into all that in just a minute. But before we do, I got to let you know that DraftKings is running a new promotion that you won't want to miss. New users can place a $5 first bet and instantly claim a $200 bonus bets. You'll be rewarded with separate, no sweat, single game parlay every single day when you opt in. All you have to do is sign up with our code Arrowhead. Using our code Arrowhead not only gets you these great bonuses, but it also directly supports our podcast. If you've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use our code Arrowhead to maximize your first bets and parlays. This offer is only available for new customers who are 21 and older and physically present in a legal gambling state. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check out the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. And we appreciate it. It really does support the show more than you'll ever know. Okay. We got to get to the game. We got to talk about all that stuff further in, but I want to get into this wide receiver situation with you. Now, I don't know if you've been on Twitter today, but I pretty much spent my entire evening yesterday going through every single pass of the Chiefs-Jet game multiple times because I wanted to see if the Chiefs receivers, the drumbeat on Twitter right now is the Chiefs receivers can't get open and we need to trade for Hollywood Brown. People are even saying trade for Chase Claypool. Who
that needs to stop.
Yeah, they got to stop passing out drugs.
Stop
in the schools.
Okay. Chase Claypool's not fixing your problem. I promise you.
So if you're interested to see what I saw, head over to my Twitter at @RPatrickAllen. It's a pinned tweet. God bless you if you make it to the end of it, because I broke Twitter. It wouldn't let me do any more. It's like 60. I went through all of their passes. I screenshotted them. So you can see for yourself right before Mahomes lets go of the ball, who's open, who's not open, and what coverage were they in? Was a guy running a route right into three guys who are in zone coverage? And you can say, oh, well, the receivers didn't get any stats. Well, what was he supposed to do? Fly over them? So I've got a whole breakdown. I've got my take on it. And I'll get to that in a second. But I wanted to hear from you, Verderame. Do you think that this is a little bit of hysteria on the part of some of these people who think that the Chiefs receivers are all garbage all of a sudden because they're not putting up big stats?
I don't think they're garbage, but I don't think it's hysteria either. They need to figure out the best combination, the best way to utilize some of these guys. I tweeted out, I can't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday. It was earlier this week. They need to lean on Rashee Rice more. Like, I don't care that the kid drops a pass a game. I mean, I care, but like I would rather live with that than have Sky Moore run 50 routes and not catch a pass. I don't need to see Sky Moore 50 snaps a game. I don't have to see it. I've seen enough of Sky Moore to know that at this point in his career, that he's just a guy. And that's backed up by the fact that he's started 4 games this year with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback and had a combined 0 catches in 2 of them. I want to see Rice get more targets. I want to see Rice get more involved. I think MVS is the one of all of them I don't worry about. He's a veteran. You know what he's going to do. You know why he's there. He'll be fine. He'll have a couple 100-yard games, and he'll bounce back, and no one will care. Kelsey will continue to ramp up his production. I'm not worried about Kelsey. I'm more worried about the rest of this group. I don't know what – like, Kadarius Toney was supposed to be this guy who was going to be a real big part of the offense. Oh, he's a breakout guy. You saw fantasy football people talk about it nonstop. Well, Kadarius Toney is currently looking at, let's see, he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8th in receiving yardage on the Chiefs, 4 yards ahead of Jerick McKinnon, 33 behind Isaiah Pacheco. He has 9 catches. He has no touchdowns. Blake Bell has a touchdown. So not feeling great about that. The other guy that, look, I'm not in the building every day, so it's hard to kind of judge this, but I'll toss it out anyway. I'd like to see more of Justin Ross. Like, I know that he's young and he's raw, and I get all that. Try him. What do you have to lose? Because some of these guys, I just don't think have the athleticism that a Ross does. And so give him the opportunity. Now, if you don't think he knows the playbook well enough, all right, fine. I understand that. I respect that. But I think the Chiefs need to shake it up a little bit. I don't think it requires some massive influx of talent from the outside. But I do think that this is a group. They are leading the league in drop percentage. They're leading the league in drops, period. They are killing the offense with this stuff on penalties. And by the way, despite all that, they're 3rd in the league in offense. So I'm not really worried about the offense. I think they'll figure it out. But yeah, the receivers are a legitimate concern right now.
All right, I'll tell you what I saw. And look, I don't blame people for being concerned because the offense as a whole has been sluggish. I think, and again, I just went through the Jets game. I didn't go through every single snap of every single game and watch the receivers so far, but I went through at length. That Jets game was not on the wide receivers. That Jets game was on the offensive line and Patrick Mahomes. They were on a roll. They were going to crush the Jets. And then Patrick Mahomes threw 2 terrible interceptions, killed drive. They got the safety, and it just sort of derailed everything. And the Jets got going on offense, so that took the ball out of Mahomes' hand for a little bit. And in the second half of that game, the Jets, they dropped 7 every single play of the first half, just about. In the second half, started mixing up a little bit, started playing a little more man, and they would every once in a while they would just drop 6 guys instead of 7, but they were in umbrella shell coverage the entire time. And a lot of the routes the wide receivers are running are designed, it looks like, obviously I don't know exactly what's going on, but you see them running guys open. They're running open, trying to get Travis Kelce open, trying to get Noah Gray open, trying to open it up underneath because they can't, they're playing so deep, the Jets were, People are like, MVS, like, our good pal from this podcast, Adam Best, he said, well, MVS is just out there running wind sprints. Well, half the time he's running wind sprints and taking two guys with him,
right,
and opening things up underneath, or he's blocking. What I saw in this game was MVS did get open a couple of times, just didn't work out for a couple of different reasons. Justin Watson gets open and does a nice job as well. He's much maligned in Kansas City. And Rice. Those were the three that actually stood out in this game. Rice does a great job of finding holes in the zone coverage. But a lot of times they're out there and they're so scheme specific and they're just rotating guys like crazy that I think that this expectation that there's going to be a Tyreek Hill-like receiver on the Chiefs again,
God,
that's going to eat up all the targets. I think it's unreasonable. And I think in that Jets game, I think there's a few things going on here. The Jets are a really good defense. They were incredibly disciplined in that game. They stayed put. They did not bite on the Chiefs' eye candy, and they showed a lot of it. When they did bite on the eye candy, that's when you got that Noah Gray touchdown, which was a fantastic design by Andy Reid and the team. But I think at the end of the day here, you've got that first game with no Kelsey, where they were dropping everything under the sun, a game they should have won. So that started your narrative. Oh, these receivers, they're a problem. Right. Then you go into the second game of the season. They're just working Kelsey back end. Sluggish performance again. Then they boat race the Chicago Bears. And then they go up against a good defense in the New York Jets. I'm not saying they're perfect, but what I am saying is it's not as bad as people think. And as this season goes on, I think you're going to see Rashee Rice have a huge game. Maybe even Sky Moore. You're going to have your MVS game. And it's going to kind of go like that. They're going to find their groove. I do not think they need to trade for anybody. If they can't make it work with the guy, they've got a lot of talent. And I know a lot of people think that they don't. They've got a lot of talent in that wide receiver room. Everybody's all jacked up about it in the preseason. Now they want to trade for Chase Claypool. Take a deep breath. If you watch this team over the last few years, they're going to be fine. If they can't figure it out with these guys, they can't figure it out.
All right. So let's run through a few good numbers and a few bad numbers. The offense specifically. Yards per play, which a lot of people will tell you is the most important stat for an offense. The Chiefs are fourth in the league. They're tied with Buffalo. They're tied with Denver, believe it or not. 5.9 yards per play. Okay. Only teams ahead from Miami, San Francisco, and the Minnesota Vikings. The Chiefs, just overall passing yardage, okay, not average or anything. They are sixth in the league. Okay. They've thrown for 1,024 yards. In touchdown passes, they are tied for fifth. They have 8. If you look at net yards gained per pass attempt, and that can be a little wonky because like garbage time can skew that. Chiefs are 8th, which is fine. If you want to talk about their rushing offense, they're third in the league running the ball, yards per attempt. They're at 4.7. And in total rushing yards, they're 9th, which is huge for that team. They are typically not that close. They're 4th in the league in first downs by rushing. And if you look at first downs by passing, they are 11th. So they are just outside the top 10 there. Now, keep diving in a little bit. Okay, so yards per completion, they're 11th, which is not great, but it's also not a disaster. Like they can improve upon that. Here's an interesting number. Sacks. They've given up 2 all year long. Okay, they're easily the best there. Sack percentage, as you would guess, they're number 1 in that. 1.3% of the time Mahomes is sacked. They are in. If you look at completion percentage, that's a spot they'd like to improve. They're 20th. Okay, they'd like to get a little bit better there. But again, the reason I'm pointing these all out, you go, well, okay, then they've got to be great offensively, right? Well, they're third in the league in offense. Like they're third in the NFL in offense. Okay, which goes by yards, not points. Okay, goes by yards. Now, if you want to go by points, they're 9th. Yards, they're third. Then you go down to a couple other numbers, and then I'll shut up. But I think these are interesting. Third down percentage, they're third in the NFL, 49.1. They're just behind Dallas and Buffalo, who are 1 and 2. Okay, so right there. Fourth down percentage, if you care about that, they're 8th. They're top 10. Red zone in the offense is 16th. They were a top 5 red zone team before last week. They went 0 for 4. Okay, so we'll see if they can bounce back there. And then lastly, drive average number, and all this, if you're curious, by the way, is all on Pro Football Reference. I think it's a great statistic base to look at. They're 7th in the league in points per drive. They are 7th in time of possession per drive. They average the 5th most yards per drive. in terms of drives that end in some kind of a score, they're 8th. All this is to say, you know what their problem is right now? They turn the ball over a lot. They're the 4th most turnovers in football, only behind Minnesota, Cleveland, or only ahead of Minnesota, Cleveland, and the Raiders. And they have a right tackle who's taken 10 penalties this year. Okay. The leader last year in total for the whole year was 14 penalties. Juwan Taylor's taking 10. And then lastly, the drops. They are the worst team in the league in drops.
Yeah.
So it's not as though my point of laying all that out is to say it's not like this offense is some wreck. It's not. It's not the juggernaut that we've seen in past years. But about 25 plus teams would gladly switch spots with the way the Chiefs have played to this point. Not what they usually are, not what they could be, what they've been. So I think sometimes you get a little bit like almost, well, what the hell? What's wrong with them? When in reality, yes, don't get me wrong. They clearly need to clean up some stuff. The turnovers, the penalties, the drops. But there's one commonality with those 3 problems. They are all self-inflicted. These are not things that you look at and go, that's unsolvable, that's unfixable, which, by the way, in real time makes it more frustrating, but it's also soothing mentally in the sense this is stuff they can get right with. It's not like you look at them and go, oh, they just can't fix it. They're a wreck up front. Well, they can't fix it. They don't have the quarterback. They can't fix it. They don't have the play call. They have all that stuff.
Yeah.
They need to figure out the stuff that they can control that has been shooting them in the foot.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that was all over the tape, which was, there were far more times where I was watching them and I was like, Mahomes missed a guy here, or he just wasn't looking, he wasn't on that read, and then the protection broke down, or he bailed, or there was an offensive line issue or a penalty. There were all these things that happened along the way, and then there were game flow issues too, that where they ran the ball twice and it just didn't work out. And so they were in a 3rd and long situation. So when you go back and you look at these plays in their totality, you'll often find that it's not just this one thing. There was very few times that I was like, well, this play didn't work because receivers couldn't get open. That just wasn't the case. There were instances of that, but by and large, not the case. And there were very many times where there was a guy open and it just didn't work out, or the Jets made a play. They're trying to win too. So I just would urge everybody, take a deep breath. Like, if this happened in the middle of the season and it was a little offensive lull and they had to grind out a couple ugly games, which happens every year, by the way, with them, nobody would be panicking like this. But I really do think that first game with all the drops and that second sluggish game with Kelsey, just getting eased back in, then the Bears game, and now you look at the stats and they say, well, look at these receiver stats. They took half the game off. They were killing them.
Well, and the other part of it too, and you mentioned it, I was at the game. I covered it for Sports Illustrated. Listen, the first game was an absolute travesty. Okay. And when you have a 4-game sample size, that's going to color a lot of things.
Yeah.
I can tell you all I had the best seat in the house in terms of I basically had an all 22 view the entire game, because the press box at Arrowhead is pretty much on the moon. And the first half or so of that game, they struggled to get open. And then they adjusted. And because Detroit played, frankly, almost the complete opposite way they played all last year. And I think it caught the Chiefs by surprise. Credit to Aaron Glenn, their defense coordinator, did a great job. Second half of that game, the Chiefs made the adjustment, and guys were wide open. The problem is they dropped everything. Now, it's also fair to say, well, that's part of the damn problem. You're a receiver. Catch the ball.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair. I think that's a fair criticism. At some point, you need to catch it. And that's why I do think it is an issue in this sense. This week, and we're going to get into this game with the Vikings, Minnesota plays a lot of man because they blitz more than anybody in the NFL. Okay, they blitz. I mean, they'll blitz their mothers in this game if they can do it. And I know that some people say, well, can you blitz Mahomes? I think they have to, because it's the way they are. I mean, maybe they'll dial it down from the percentage that they're at, but they're still going to blitz him more than most teams will. This is not a team with good corners. This is not a team that should be able to run with the Chiefs. The Chiefs' speed should show up in this game. If they can't get open against Minnesota, then I think it's a whole nother conversation. These next 4 weeks are going to be very instructive to me, because you have Minnesota, Denver, the Chargers, and Denver. Those teams stink defensively. Right. Denver has the worst defense ever recorded through 4 weeks in DVOA. Okay. And I got to tell you, I've watched the tape at Denver. It matches up with the DVOA. I mean, they are a sieve defensively. The Chargers just ate an ungodly amount of money to get rid of a guy they paid $82.5 million for last year. And outside of Asante Samuel, their corners are nothing to write home about either. They are getting torched left and right. And then you have Minnesota, who we'll get into. But this is, to me, if they can't get it figured out over these next 4 games, then it's a 5-alarm fire. But look, you're going to have 3 games, I believe, before the trade deadline. Watch and see what happens. But I got to tell you, there's no white knight riding in at the trade deadline. I don't know who that's going to be. Maybe I like Darnell Mooney. He's probably the best guy out there. More Hollywood Brown. I mean, it's not like they're going to go out and get Justin Jefferson at the deadline. So they have to figure it out. I think they will. But so far, yeah, they've been ugly in terms of this. This receiving group. And Sam asked the Chiefs speed. Who exactly is fast? Well, I mean, to be fair, Sam, MVS is very fast. Justin Watson is very fast. Rashee Rice has good speed. Kadarius Toney can run. I mean, they got speed. I mean, the Chiefs have speed, man. I mean, that's not their problem. With all due respect, I appreciate the opinion, but now you could get into it. Do they have big-bodied guys? I mean, MVS is tall, but he's lanky. Rice is more of a box-out type guy, but they have speed. Yeah. The Chiefs should have no problem in winning some of these one-on-one matchups, running away from guys. The question is going to be, can they catch the ball? That's the problem.
Yeah, and the couple times they were on some deep routes, and there was always a safety, at least one. They would get a step on their guy, and they would have a chance for some of these big plays, and it didn't work out. But I'm like, for a lot of you asking, well, where are all the big plays? And guys, go watch the tape. You can't, if they're all standing 40 yards off the line of scrimmage, it's going to be hard to get a play deep downfield. The Chiefs know that. They're terrified. Teams are terrified of Patrick Mahomes and what he'll do to them. And so they're trying to slow down this offense. And the Chiefs, they're running plays and they're running guys down there to clear people out. And that's why I will tell you who else stood out on tape is Noah Gray. He can move.
He can play. That kid's a good player.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think is maybe one of the solutions here.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Chiefs, and I'm not just talking about this game, but just in general moving forward, like they have played a lot of 2 tight ends anyway. I'm not saying they're not doing this. I got to tell you, go to more of it. Like, put Gray out there. That kid can play like a receiver. Put him out there. Yeah. I remember when they drafted him, talking to somebody in the building who literally thought he was the best player in that draft class. Like a high up person was like, I think this is the best guy of our draft class. That's a draft class that includes Bolton, Humphrey, and Smith. Now, I think as time has shown, I don't think he's going to be Humphrey or Bolton maybe, but Noah Gray can play. Like, he would be a starting tight end on 20 teams in the league. So I'm with you. Like, if you're the Chiefs, look, go to 12, and that does a couple of things, okay? Number one, you can run out of it because it's 2 tight end set, right? So you do that. You also put teams in a bind defensively because now they got to choose. You got 2 tight ends out there. Are you going to stick in nickel or are you going to play base? And if you play base, the Chiefs are going to throw against that all day long. And if you play nickel, it gives the Chiefs an advantage in the run game. And let's face it, the Chiefs are still going to throw against it because Kelsey is not going to have any problem going against a safety or a backer. Lastly, it takes one of these receiver spots off the field. So now you're playing by the way, the Niners did this forever, but they just did it with Juszczyk instead of a 2 tight end. Like they just put him out there. You're taking a receiver off the field. So now, like, let's say MVS is MVS. Okay, so you're fine there. And if Rice steps up, there you go. There's a solvent to a lot of your problems. I'm not saying you're going to stick in that 80% of the time, but if I'm the Chiefs, I'd go more 2 tight end sets, even more than they've already done because they work. Yeah. The Chiefs are really good at that, and it causes a lot of problems. Most teams are not built from a defensive personnel standpoint to play against 12 personnel. They're built to play against 11 personnel. And so if you go out and you're playing Gray and Kelsey with the unique ability of, hey, we could run, we could block with these guys, or we could just trot them out there like receivers, that becomes a much harder thing to deal with. That is a very, very difficult schematic problem for a lot of defenses.
It is. And the play they scored the touchdown on to Noah Gray, they had on the right side of the line, they had Noah Gray with his hand in the dirt. They had Kelsey and Rashee Rice, and they ran Rashee Rice straight up the field and he basically took out 2 defenders. And the third guy got caught between Kelsey and Gray went deep and Kelsey went shallow, and they ran the same pattern. And guess who the guy shaded towards? Travis Kelsey. Noah Gray was wide open. It was a great scheme. Rashee Rice did his job. It wasn't about him getting open. It was about him running interference. Kelsey, they're terrified of, and they're not scared of Noah Gray and then he caught the ball, and then they saw how fast he was. You would have thought the safety probably thought he was going to be able to run him down. Couldn't do it. Scored. So I'm with you, man. I'd love to see more of that. And given the looks that they were getting against the Jets, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Noah Gray. And you saw Mahomes going to him. Mahomes was throwing to him a lot.
Mahomes trusts him. I mean, look, it doesn't sound like a whole lot because you're like, oh, Noah Gray, 13 targets, 8 catches, 112 yards. He's on pace for like 500 receiving yards.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he's a backup tight end. Now, the problem is Kelsey's only played in 3 games. He's averaging, 52 yards a game, which for him is nothing. But look, he's also the kind of guy, he's going to rip off like 4 120-yard games in a row and nobody's going to care. Watson, to his credit, is actually the one guy I think deserves more Parlay or more shine than he's getting. He's on pace for like 650 yards.
Yeah.
Like for Justin Watson, that's like the problem has been Sky Moore outside of one play has done nothing. MVS is sitting there on pace for 400 yards, just 6 catches. But again, he's a guy that I'm sure will be fine. He has a history of that. I like that Pacheco is more involved in the passing game. But this is something that they're going to have to figure out. I would also say, though, to people who are kind of nervous about all this, their offense kind of went and starts and stops last year in the beginning of the season. I mean, they killed the Cardinals. Okay, and everybody remembers that game. They did nothing offensively against the Chargers and the Colts. Nothing. You go back and look at those games. They beat the Chargers because of a pick 6 and then lost to a Colts team that was an abomination. And then the Buccaneers game, they ran for a ton of yards, but they weren't exactly like high-flying offensive. I don't want to say they weren't good because they scored 38 points, but it wasn't like a game that you watched and went, oh, my God, they looked amazing. I mean, I'm looking at the box score right now. So the box score in that game, Mahomes threw for 249, 6.7 yards per attempt. He was sacked 3 times. And they ran for $189. That was the big storyline out of that game. But they weren't. I mean, Kelsey was Kelsey. He had 9 for 92. Everybody else was kind of just like there, I mean, it wasn't a game that you looked at and went, oh, my God. That offense really didn't start to fully take off. Even the next week, they scored 30, but they got down 17-0 to the Raiders, and they didn't play well at all against the Bills in that game. They scored 20 points and they lost. It didn't really start to take off the second half of the year. And then they killed the Niners. That was kind of the game where they really went. And then they came out, they had a bye, and then they beat Tennessee in a game where the offense, again, was not great. And then it kind of took off. Then they beat Jacksonville, beat the Chargers, beat the Rams, and so on and so forth. But it took a little while. I mean, the Chiefs didn't come out. They were great week 1. And then offensively, really, they weren't great again until they played the Niners like 6 weeks later. So it took a little bit of time. I think the season worked out okay.
Yeah, and that Rams game was ugly. The Chiefs kind of had a little bit of a new look offense last year, and teams adjusted. Don't think they weren't watching tape all offseason trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do with Kansas City? We know we're going to play Kansas City this year. Their Chiefs are dealing with some new guys. They're dealing with some new looks probably that they weren't seeing last year a lot. It's going to be okay. They're going to figure it out, and I think they got the guys in the stable to get it done. All right, let's get into this game here. Just before we do, I want to let you guys know, if you want to become part of the Arrowhead Addict family, check out the link in the description. We have a private Discord. We watch the games together. We have special events, happy hours, trivias. We got a fantasy football league. It's a great time. If you want to support the show, support more great content like this, so we can bring on great guests like Verderame, more expanding the shows, doing more live events like we did last year. Check it out. There's all kinds of ways to support us, and we appreciate you. Okay, Chiefs at Vikings. So notes on this game. It's the Vikings are 1-3. They lost to the Bucks, Eagles, and Chargers. They beat the Panthers last week. They lost by 3 points to the Bucks, 6 points to the Eagles, 4 points to the Chargers, and then they beat the Panthers 21-13. They put up a ton of stats on offense, particularly in the passing game. They turned the ball over a lot. But I wanted to ask you, Verderame, and this is a team so they've lost some close games this year. They won a bunch of close games last year.
Yes.
Do you think that this team is better than their record indicates?
Yes, I do. I don't think they are. I don't think they're a great team by any stretch, but I think they're probably more like a 2-2 team than a 1-3 team. Now, listen, they lost those games. And they lost those games because they make mistakes. And that is something that with Kirk Cousins, he has some games he plays really well. He has other games where you look at him and go, what's going on?
That's for sure.
Yeah, their offense is really good. The problem with the Vikings has been the turnovers, as you point out. And defensively, they're a really, really shaky defensive team. I mean, they are just this is not a group that's going to overwhelm up front. Okay, this is not now they will with blitz packages. They'll try to overwhelm you with numbers, but they're not just going to win a whole bunch of one-on-ones. Danielle Hunter's excellent. He has 5 sacks. He's it. So I do think they're better than their 1-3 record. Which, by the way, the line opened at 5.5, not 3.5. I think that's part of the reason. I think people are going, "Whoa, the Vikings not getting enough respect here." But I also think that in a weird way, I think the Chiefs match up in a very, very, very good way against Minnesota. Like, if Minnesota plays the way it's been playing, I think it plays into Kansas City's hands. But the Vikings are talented. The Vikings are more talented, certainly, than the Jets without Rodgers or the Bears. I would say they're probably less talented than Jacksonville and the Lions. So this is probably like, of the 5 games, I put this one like smack dab in the middle.
Yeah, but I think offensively, they're more talented than both of those teams by quite a bit.
It depends. How much are we weighing Trevor Lawrence's talents?
Because
Because, I mean, seriously, like,
with Trevor Lawrence.
I think Jacksonville's offense is better than Minnesota. That's just me, though.
I mean, it's close for me. Ridley hasn't been playing as well since the first week of the season. TJ Hawkinson's excellent. He's one of the best tight ends in football. Justin Jefferson's running around out there. They got rookie Jordan Addison, who's a nice player. KJ Osborne's fine. So they can move the football. But as you mentioned, their problem's been turnovers. So let's start with the elephant in the room, and that's Justin Jefferson. The Chiefs have been excellent on defense this year, even played well without Nick Bolton. What do you do with Justin Jefferson in this game if you're the Chiefs?
You pray. You go to church and you light a bunch of candles.
Because you can't stop him.
Yeah, he's going to get a bunch of yards. It's going to happen. I don't care. And look, I'm going to save everybody the time. Save me the time. Oh, they'll just put McDuffie on him. Like, no, listen. I love Trent McDuffie. Like, you can double Justin Jefferson. You might still have 100 yards. Okay. This is a team that they're going to get him open. He's going to get himself open. Like, he's going to make his presence known. All right. I mean, I don't see any world with Justin Jefferson, who, by the way, has 543 receiving yards already.
Preposterous.
Dude, it's ridiculous, man. Like, his worst game was last week. He had 6 catches, 85 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That was his worst game.
He was going 150 yards every week.
Yeah, 150, 159, 149. Like, the guy is just if the Chiefs hold him to 100 yards, should be thrilled to death. Should be thrilled to death if that's what he ends up with. He's that type of a player. And look, they got other guys too. Okay, Jordan Addison's a nice, good-looking rookie, 185 yards. Hawkinson's a good tight end, 203. And by the way, KJ Osborne is a decent receiver. So they got guys. I mean, they are, and Osborne's not, I'm not trying to make him like a great receiver, but he's like an MVS type of receiver in terms of production. So I think you almost, in my opinion, have to accept the fact that Jefferson's going to get a minimum of like $120. And then you just have to go, all right, now how do we mitigate everything else? Because if Jefferson, let's say he goes for 125, let's just give him a nice round number, 125. If the rest of the team matches that, who cares? They're not winning the game, right? Like, I mean, unless the Chiefs really crap the bet on offense, they're not going to win that game. Like, the key to me in the game is not letting everybody else go off. It's not letting Addison have 100 yards and Hawkinson have 90 yards and a touchdown. Like that, if Jefferson has 10 catches for, whatever, like I said, $120, $125, it's not ideal. I mean, obviously you want to hold him down more than that, but if he does that and the rest of these guys combine for $125 or $130, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, and then of course there's the other approach of, hey, you do everything you possibly can to shut him down and let everybody else beat you. But I don't like that because he's still going to beat you sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think you just live with it. There are some players in sports, you just look at the guy and you're like, yeah, man, I get some basketball, right? LeBron in his prime. That dude's putting up 30. Like, he's going to have a 30, 10, and 6. And you need to hope that, like, Kyrie Irving doesn't go off or Kevin Love doesn't go off. I think if you're the Chiefs, look, you throw different looks. You try to, You try to get some pressure, some different things. I mean, that's probably, truthfully, if you want to talk about how the best way, that's probably the best way.
Yeah.
Is getting it so where Cousins doesn't have time to throw the ball, because that offensive line is not good. That is one thing the Chiefs might have. And I talked about, I like the way it matches up for them. The tackles are good. The interior is a freeway. Okay. This could be a game where Jones legitimately has like 3 or 4 sacks in this game. So I would not be surprised if the Chiefs just say, we're going to get a ton of pressure up the middle and force Cousins to get rid of the ball quick.
Yeah, I believe I want to say he's been sacked 10 times, which is not great through 4 games.
It's not, but their pressure rate's brutal, man. He's been under duress all the time this year.
Yeah, and that's the thing with him, right? I mean, Kirk Cousins, I'm sure we all watched the quarterback documentary, and if you did, I don't know how you didn't come away from that liking Kirk Cousins if you didn't care about him or know about him before. Seems like a super good dude, tough competitor, plays hard, cares a lot. Maybe cares too much because he just has these moments where he melts down. And I think that that's what you need to take advantage of if you're the Chiefs, is you got to try to get pressure on him, do the best you can against Jefferson, but get after him often and early and get him into because he's streaky, right? Like he can get going. He can start getting that ball to Jefferson and he can start going. So you got to kind of knock him off his rhythm. And I think that's what you want to do if you're the Chiefs. Maybe send some strategic blitzes. I don't think you want to go crazy because, again, I really like the rookie Jordan Addison.
Yep.
Hawkinson will cause you problems over the middle. He's got big play potential. And then, of course, you got to deal with Jefferson. So you don't want to get crazy in this game. And the Chiefs have been pretty good in coverage. So if they can do rush 4 and get a little bit of pressure and then do an occasional smart blitz, use Willie Gay Jr. They've been blitzing the corners a little bit, get McDuffie going, blitz Snead, just keep Cousins on his toes, but you got to get to him quick because Jefferson is just an absolute terror.
No question. And I looked up the pressure numbers. So Minnesota, according to Pro Football Reference, 5th worst in the NFL in terms of pressure rate allowed at 27.8. By the way, the Chiefs are 7th worst. So that's not exactly great. Got to fix that. But here's what's interesting. All right. So the team in front, or I guess as you would say, behind Minnesota in terms of worst pressure rate, the Giants, which you saw Monday night, you believe that? Daniel Jones has scrambled 19 times, which is a ton. In fact, it is 2nd most in the league behind only Lamar Jackson, which is not shocking. Mahomes has scrambled 3rd most. Kirk Cousins has scrambled, keep in mind, Daniel Jones 19 times. Mahomes has scrambled 16 times. Kirk Cousins has scrambled twice. So if you get pressure, you get pressure. Like he's not going anywhere. He's not running out of the pocket. He's not taking off for any kind of rushing yardage. Like he's not going to extend the play. He's getting sacked or he's throwing the ball. Like that's what's happening, right? I mean, and to drive that point home, Cousins has run 5 times this year for 17 yards. So it's not going anywhere. And I think if you're Kansas City, that's why maybe you're not as afraid to just blitz right up the gut in this game and worry about him getting out of the pocket. He's not going to do that. So I would expect the Chiefs to do everything they can. I could see this being one of these games where Dana lines up inside and Karlaftis lines up inside. And God knows, of course, Jones will line up inside. I could see this being a game where the Chiefs are basically playing like rock, paper, scissors to see who gets over the guards in the center next.
Yeah.
Because if they get immediate pressure up the gut, play's over. Play's over immediately. Cousins is not going to extend the play. And as Lucas points out, yes, Cousins fumbling has not been good for him either. He has fumbled the ball. Let's see, he's fumbled at least twice, and when he's been running with it. So I don't know if that encompasses everything. But in any event, yeah. Listen, this is a team that if you're Kansas City, there are some ways to go after them. There are some ways to attack them, but you also have to be smart. You have to be smart because those receivers can hurt you. The tight end can hurt you, and that has to be factored in.
Now, when we talk about the Chiefs on offense in this game, I looked at these back-to-back games that the Vikings had before last week. 3 weeks ago, the Eagles rushed for 259 yards on this defense.
All over them.
Swift went crazy. And then the next week, the Chargers came to town And Keenan Allen and Mike Williams combined for 336 yards receiving.
And Mike Williams got hurt in like the second quarter.
Right. Yeah. Keenan Allen had over like 200 yards. It was insane. So if you're the Chiefs, what do you do in this one? Do you load up Pacheco, who's just coming off maybe his best game as a Chief? Or do you attack him through the air and try to get your receiving core?
You know me well enough to know what I'm going to say. I just mix it up and go after them all. Like to me, keep them off balance, run the ball, pass the ball. But I will say, and you know this is coming, anybody who's listened to me for years, if they get away from the run, it's going to drive me insane. Isaiah Pacheco is not just a good player. He's a Pro Bowl caliber running back. Isaiah Pacheco is really good. And this line can run block. They can do it. The Chiefs need to run the ball in this game. But first of all, not just because they'll go balance and all that stuff. Pacheco's one of your best players. You're taking pressure off of this receiving core that to this point has been an issue. And on top of that, it also is a game breaker against the blitz. If they blitz and Pacheco hits the hole, good night. He's gone. There's nobody else. So if I'm the Chiefs, I'm looking at this going, okay, we'll run the ball some here. I normally with them, I don't always love these outside runs, especially with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It drives me nuts. But this might be a game to try a little bit of that, because if they bring a bunch of interior blitzes and you get outside of that, the Chiefs receivers are good blockers. That could be something where they could really spring some. So, listen, I think you throw the ball certainly more than you run, no question. But I would run the ball significantly in this game. I do not think Minnesota's defense is going to just stuff them time and again. You might have some run blitzes where they get a couple successful plays and all that. But this is a team in Minnesota that really, look, outside of Danielle Hunter, who's a great player, nobody on this team has more than 2 tackles for loss. And by the way, if you look at their numbers, of the 5 top tackle for loss guys on the Vikings, 3 of them are safeties. Like, this is a team, their linebackers are not good.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a group that, look, if you can handle Hunter at all, this shouldn't be much of a problem in terms of handling them. I mean, they should be able to do a lot of what they want to do in this game, running and passing.
Yeah, and I think if they're going to blitz a lot, Travis Kelce should just eat them alive. Just absolutely, take their lunch in this game. Yeah. But I agree with you on Pacheco, man. I'll tell you what, he's getting better too. That's the good thing. He was really solid as a rookie. His vision is getting a little bit better. People forget he played at Rutgers, which they're not a football school. They could not block for him when he was in college. They were horrible. So one of the knocks on him coming into the draft was that he was kind of an impatient runner, didn't allow his blocks to set. Well, it's because he didn't have any. So he was just trying to get and of course you see his running style as well. The guy's just, he's the Energizer Bunny, he wants to run through a wall. But now he's starting to see the field better because he's got a year under his belt. And that's exactly what you've seen on some of his big runs. And then you see once he gets out there, he's got the speed to take it to the house, which, by the way, it was on that big run that he had. I think it was Trey Smith who just knocked another zip code. But also, I believe it was MVS who turned his guy. I think he was on Sauce Gardner and turned him away from the play on the outside to make room for just for all the people trashing MVS. He doesn't just run streaks and catch footballs. Anyway, okay, so we talked about turnovers with the Vikings, and they're -8 in the turnover ratio coming into this game. The Chiefs are -3, so not good for either of them, but really bad for the Vikings. Can the Chiefs take the ball away in this one?
I mean, everybody else is. So, I would say yes. But, I think it's really one of these games where I'm more focused on the Chiefs not turning the ball over than taking the ball away. I mean, yes, the answer is yes. They certainly can. And I think a lot of that is set up by, can you get pressure on Cousins immediately? Because if you can force some mistakes. And if you're the Chiefs, you're talking all week about ripping the ball out and punching at the ball and all those things. But to me, if you're Kansas City, you went this game going, hey, look, we don't have to necessarily win the turnover battle. Can't lose the turnover battle. cannot lose turnover battle. That is the bigger issue. That is the bigger problem, right? Now, they've gotten away with it at times, okay? They lost the turnover battle at Jacksonville. They had 3 turnovers. They only had 1 takeaway, and they won the game. And then last week, they were -1 again. They won the game. I can't even think with the Bears. The Bears, I think, were even, but the 2 turnovers the Chiefs had, they were up like 41 points. So, I mean, yeah, take that for what it is. I mean, that also kind of skews things a little bit, right? Like they had 2 ridiculous turnovers from Gabbert.
Right.
That, to be fair, weren't even on Gabbert, but like, I agree. This is a game you'd love to see a takeaway or 2. At the same point, I just think for the Chiefs, the biggest thing is not giving the ball away. If you're even, you're fine. You just don't want to be negative.
Yeah. Yeah, and my advice to the fans out there who are maybe excited about this defense, they're going to give up some plays in this game. Don't have a meltdown if you're a member in the Arrowhead Addict Discord and get banished to the Shadowlands in there, or on Twitter when they get a couple big chunk plays. That's what this offense does. It's going to happen. It's about when they get into the red zone, can the Chiefs stiffen up, force Kirk Cousins to make some mistakes, make him kick field goals? The Vikings want to get in a shootout because it's pretty much the only way that they can win. The Chiefs need to just stand tall, accept that they're going to give up some big plays, but nothing over the top. No easy ones, no turnovers. I agree with you. All right, so what are your on the defensive side of the ball, in place of keys to the game this year? I want to know who's your defensive player and offensive player who need to step up for the Chiefs to win this one.
When you say need to step up, we talking about guys who need to play better or guys who just need to be a force in the game?
Yeah, who's going to be the force in this one? Who do the Chiefs need? If there's one guy that
Chris Jones.
Play well. Yeah.
Chris Jones in this game. Yeah. I honestly think he can destroy the entire game if he plays well. I don't know if anybody's watched a lot of Minnesota this year. Guys, I'm not kidding. It is a freeway. Guards in. It's the Autobahn watching that team try to block. It's brutal. Like, I don't even care if they double Jones. He could have 3 or 4 sacks in this game. If I'm the Chiefs, I'm like, there are going to be plays. I would move Karlaftis and Jones in together. I'd put them both in there at D tackle. I mean, I would do everything I could to I'd blitz the A gap. Everything. So Chris Jones is the guy there for me. Offensively, I know it's just kind of a stupid answer, I guess, but Mahomes. I mean, he didn't play well last week. And I think this is the kind of a game he could have a huge game.
Yeah.
I think he'd have a huge game. To me, this is a team you're going to see a ton of blitzing. You're going to see a ton of man coverage. I just think this is an opportunity. And by the way, I keep referencing, they blitz a lot. They blitz a lot. I always try to give numbers with that. Minnesota this year, a normal team, normal year, team that blitzes the most in the NFL, it's usually around 40 to 45%, somewhere in that range. Minnesota's leading the league in blitz percentage this year at 57%. Okay, that's impossible. Like, nobody blitzes more than 50% of the time. And by the way, that's down from a week before before they played Carolina. It was at 63%. They blitz and blitz and blitz and blitz, and they play man behind it. And this is a game where Andy should show off his ability calling plays, scheming things up, and Mahomes should just be able to use his intellect to know what's coming and then just slice him. I mean, there is no reason in this game not to be able to do that. Minnesota's defense in the past has been off. They are sixth worst in yards after catch allowed. They have been awful in that regard. Air yards, they're right in the middle, so they're a little bit better with that. But that bodes well for the way the Chiefs want to play. It's just because, by the way, the Chiefs are top 3 in the league in yards after catch for their receivers. This is a game where identify where the pressure's coming from, get the ball out to a guy in space, and let him run. Because they could run for a long time. I think this bodes well for the Chiefs. I think Mahomes has to play well and identify and do what he does, and he'll be fine. And then Jones could wreck the game.
Yeah, I would watch out for. I wouldn't be surprised if Pacheco gets a few through the air in this one. Look for them to get Jerick McKinnon involved in this game if they're playing a lot of man coverage. Get some of these out of the backfield, stretch things out. There's going to be some space to run.
Screens. My God, it'd be wide open. There's nobody to cover it.
It could be a big Tony game if they can get him going. They've got a lot of screens against the Jets. They would move Tony in motion, bring him into the backfield, run him back out. So, they're setting some things up with him to try to get him the ball, and they want to try to get him the ball while he's got a full head of steam going. And so this is the kind of game where if they've got him in man coverage and they do he runs around the quarterback, runs in the backfield, he could do some serious damage. So it should be exciting. Oh yeah, sorry, I got distracted by.
By the way, I think you guys had a super chat.
Yeah, we got a super chat here. Do you know what this? Yeah, this one came from Siam. I don't know what this means, Verderame. It says,
what's the compensation to give for Jefferson?
Oh, you'd give for Jefferson? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. He's asking what it would cost in a trade. More than the Chiefs are willing to give up.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm not even exaggerating. You're probably talking 3 first-round picks. And if not 3 firsts, you're talking 2 firsts, a second, a third, something ridiculous. But I would say 3 first-round picks.
Yeah,
and then you're also paying him $35 million a year. So
he's unbelievable,
and he's worth it. I'm not saying he's not worth it, but that's what you're talking 3 firsts.
Yeah,
minimum. That's where I would start if I was Minnesota. That's what I would start with.
Yeah.
So that's not going to happen. But I think we talked about this. I'm not trying to be that guy, but I've done enough spots in the last week. I can't remember. I think we talked about it here. If I'm the Chiefs, I'm looking at Darnell Mooney, and I'm saying that guy had 1,000 yards a couple of years ago. He's on his rookie deal. He's never had a quarterback. Matt Nagy knows him because he had 1,000 yards for Matt Nagy in Chicago. Mooney's small. He's not a big guy, but he's fast. I think Darnell Mooney would be awesome with the Chiefs. I'm not saying he'd be like the answers to their wide receiver 1 stuff.
Yeah.
But I think he'd be a really nice number 2. I would prefer him over Hollywood Brown. I would prefer him way over Chase Claypool. But I'll give you another guy. KJ Osborne in this game. KJ Osborne's a good player. He's not great, but he's good. I like KJ Osborne. I see Jeremy saying call about Michael Pittman. Yeah, listen, Michael Pittman would be great. He would be a wide receiver 1. Okay, the problem is Indy is 2-2, and they have a rookie quarterback, and are they going to give away his real only weapon on the outside, right? So it's tough. It's tough. But right now, listen, the Chiefs they got to figure out their own issues, and then you go from there.
Yeah, Mooney's interesting. If the Bears lose tonight, there's
they're going to lose tonight. They stink.
Yeah, there's a rumor going around that Eberflus could get fired, and at that point, if you're the Bears and you're 0-5, I mean, they may seriously start looking at moving Justin Fields because they've got Carolina's first-round pick.
Right.
They haven't won a game yet, have they? Is Carolina?
No, they're the only 2 teams that haven't won a game.
Yeah. So the Bears are sitting there and be like, holy crap. Yeah. Caleb Williams coming out. We could have the first and second pick in this draft, and we could take Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State, and we're good to go. We're rocking and rolling.
If you were them, that would be the ideal scenario.
Yeah.
Do you think? Yeah, I'll spin on you. Do you think if they lose tonight, which I believe they will lose, and I just got word from SI that I don't have to write about this game tonight, so I'm very thankful and might watch it with a glass or an entire handle of bourbon in my hand. Yeah. If they lose tonight, do you think they're going to fire Eberflus, or should they?
I do. They haven't won a game since before Elon Musk bought Twitter.
It's true.
It's just
I haven't called Twitter anymore.
You can't, they went out and you can, the Claypool trade was a disaster, but they still got some weapons. They improved this team a little bit. The defense is still atrocious. So it is one of those situations where the deck was stacked against them a little bit, but there's enough weapons here to win the game. And if you're the head coach, ultimately your job is to make sure Justin Fields is successful. That's your job. You have failed at that. And that's unforgivable. And going 0-5, it's now just a time to get a whole clean slate. If you're Chicago, you're in line for and just tank, trade Justin Fields. Do you think the Jets don't have anything to give, but there are teams out there that would take a flyer on him just for the talent alone. And then you set the table. You say we're moving on. He needs a fresh start. We need a fresh start. God knows Justin Fields wants to get the hell out of there. I'm an Ohio State guy. I'm rooting for Justin Fields, but I last offseason thought that they should have. Not to go too on a tangent, I thought they should have traded him and taken CJ Stroud because I knew CJ Stroud was going to be good. And I knew he was going to be better sooner than Justin Fields. And just because Justin Fields ran around like a maniac because he's an incredible athlete last year, everybody's like, oh, you can't trade him. He's going to be, yeah, but he's still completing 50% of his passes. He can't throw the ball. He's not been able to do it in the NFL. And now they're reaping what they sow, but they might fall ass backwards into Caleb Williams. So, maybe
they might. I actually fall on this though. Like, I don't know that firing him, what does it do? Like, because you got to think too. Okay, Luke Getsy is the offensive coordinator. There's no head coaching experience. You're gonna promote Luke Getsy and let him coach the team? Because I got to tell you, their offense is not giving me a whole lot of confidence that he's coached the team. They don't have a defensive coordinator after the ugliness that went on there during the Chiefs week. He's not there anymore. Who the hell's coaching that team? Like, and you got to factor in, this is a franchise, okay, that let Dave Wannstedt coach forever, and then had Dick Duran and let him hang around for a while. And then Lovie Smith was like, okay, let's say whatever you want about Lovie Smith. Like, they actually won a bunch, and they went to a Super Bowl with him. It's like, fair enough. I'm not getting on Lovie.
Lovie looks like Vince Lombardi compared to the guys they had after him.
Yes, no question. Then Mark Trestman rolled in, one of the worst head coaches I've ever seen. John Fox showed up, abject disaster, right? Nagy then 4 years, and now here we are. They show this is an old franchise run by the McCaskey family, which is the daughter of George Howell, essentially. And she is, I believe, over 100 at this point. Like, they're not ones to really have a knee-jerk reaction. They don't typically bow to public pressure. I'm not saying I'd be shocked if he's fired. I'd probably just let this train wreck play out. I know the fans don't want to hear that, but I'd be like, you know what? We're going to suck. Let's really just lean into it. I'd trade Ngakoue. I would trade Mooney. Claypool, they're just going to have to cut. Nobody's trading for Chase Claypool. But, the hell with it. I'd get rid of all these guys. And if they stink, they stink, and I'd move on. Now, the problem for them is going to be, you're going to have to just deal with this year. I mean, I don't see any way around that. Obviously, they're not going to fix this thing. But, DJ Moore is probably the one guy that it's he's pretty safe. But, man, even, I'm just looking up his numbers real quick. If they traded him, there's no dead money. I mean, I'm not saying I think that's going to happen, but I've heard worse ideas. Some team offered them something, but that team is in a bad way. They are awful.
Yeah, I would keep him just because if I'm tearing it down and I'm going to get a rookie quarterback, I want somebody out there who can catch the ball.
I agree. I agree, which is why I don't think he'll get traded.
Yeah. All right. Back to the Chiefs here. We're going to give you our final score for predictions for Chiefs Vikings in just a minute. Before we do, quick segment of our AFC contender or pretender series. And Verderame, this week I wanted to ask you, the Baltimore Ravens, pretender or contender?
I think they are pretenders. I think they're contenders in the sense that right now, I think you got to believe they're the best team in that division. I don't believe that they, in a playoff game, are beating Kansas City or beating Buffalo. I don't even know that I think they're beating Miami. Jacksonville, where's the game? If it's in Baltimore, I'd probably take Baltimore. If it's in Jacksonville, I'd probably take Jacksonville. I have a problem with Baltimore in the sense that I feel like we do this every year with the Ravens. Who's catching the ball? Now, Zay Flowers has been a good player for them. Okay, he's a good-looking rookie.
Yeah.
Beckham's already been hurt a bunch. Bateman, again, already hurt a bunch. Andrews missed some time early in the year. You look at them and go, okay, who's it going to be? Beckham is 66 yards in 2 games. Bateman has 59 yards in 3 games. It's just I don't know. I mean, can they throw the ball enough? Can they do that? The running game is basically Lamar and then some Gus Edwards. I just look at them and go, I think defensively they're I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I'm with you, pretender. They're a divisional round exit, in my opinion. Solid team, but some of the question marks that have dogged them for years, I think will dog them again this year. But who knows? Maybe they'll turn it around. All right, Chiefs Vikings final score predictions. I see some of you in the chat have already started to sound off. Brian says Chiefs 38, Vikings 21. Alan F 17-6 KC. Well, if the Chiefs hold the Vikings to 6 points.
But also, if the Chiefs only score 17, that is going to be an interesting room after the game.
Yeah. Chiefs 41-17. Kelsey 3 touchdowns. Pacheco 2 touchdowns, and Tony 1 and Mahomes 1.
Wait, so how the hell are they only scoring 41 points?
Yeah, that's a lot of touchdowns. Jeremy says 37-23. KCDC 34-23 Chiefs. Warped Chiefs 38, Vikings 31. Close one there. And Ronald says 31-20 Chiefs. Rhino 34-17 Chiefs. You guys are bringing them fast and furious. All right, Verderame, what's your prediction on this one?
I think this game, the matchup favors the Chiefs in this game. Not just because they're better, just the way the teams play. I think somebody else, KCDC, had it in there, and it was a thought I had. So we're going to match here. I'm going to say 34-23 Kansas City. A lot of times I get nervous with the Chiefs, like against the spread, and oh God, are they going to? I think they're actually going to cover the spread and then some in this game. I wouldn't be shocked if it's closer than that, but I just think unless the Chiefs beat themselves, which they have shown they're capable of this year.
Oh yeah.
I just think Minnesota is not stopping them in this game. I don't. Minnesota's defense is not good. Action Jackson, hey man, hey, your Bills. Look at you, 3-1. Good for you, dude. I just think this is a game where Minnesota is going to have to get a couple of key stops, and I don't think they can get them. Like, say what you want about the Jets, they can get stops. Detroit's defense can get some stops. Minnesota, I just feel like this is going to be one of these games where it's like 3rd and 4 a bunch, and the Chiefs just convert them constantly over and over and over and over. And I think there's going to be a handful. I think that's going to be the difference in the game. I think there's going to be some 3rd and 6s for Cousins that Spagnuolo just puts him in hell. And they blitz him, and they sack him, and they force a throwaway or an inaccurate pass. Give me Chiefs 34-23.
I like it. For me, this one, I think I'm worried about it. I'm nervous. In fact, I almost picked the Vikings. I just had a weird feeling about it. I think it's just the explosiveness that they can have on offense. And I really respect Vikings fans and the atmosphere. I really want to go see a game in Minnesota. Every time they're on TV, like I just think they get the horn, and it seems like it's a great place to watch.
Mahomes has never played there.
Yeah, he hasn't. That's right. I think if he wins this game, he'll have beaten 30 of the 32 teams, which is just bananas. 30 or 31.
Because he's never the game that they beat them in 2019. He didn't play. That was the
Matt Moore
game, right?
Yeah. So I think this is a tough environment the Chiefs are going into. They finally got up to Schneid last week, so the fans will be a little bit energized. Chiefs want to jump on them early. Things start going wrong, then they'll just remember that they're not good again, hopefully. But I got it a close one. Chiefs 28, Vikings 24. And my bold prediction for this one is that Travis Kelce will have more receiving yards than Justin Jefferson. I think Kelce goes off in this one. All right.
Yeah, I should say wow. Like, that's not crazy. I mean, yeah, first Hall of Fame. Okay, fair enough.
Let's see if it plays out. You'll be with us, I think, briefly after the game. Okay, before we go, Patty's Power Rankings, everyone's favorite segment. This week, I thought we'd bring it back to football, Verderame. Give me your 3. You don't have to put them in an order if you don't want to, but give me your 3 favorite current Chiefs. But they have to be They have to be non-Mahomes Kelce. Can't use those two because that's just boring.
Okay. Just trying to make sure I'm going to try to rank them, so I'm trying to do this quick in my head. Non-Mahomes Kelce Chiefs. I would say number 3 is probably Bolton, and I'll admit too. I interviewed him during training camp. He couldn't have been any nicer. It was a great interview. We had a good time chatting. But I just love the way he plays. He's downhill. He's a big hitter, and hell, they don't win that Super Bowl without him. So, I would put him at 3. This is a weird one. I just love the way the dude plays. Number 2 is Pacheco. I just love watching him. Like, I guess since it's a weird one, like there's plenty of guys. But I don't know that he'd be in the top 3 for some people based on how talented the team is. But man, Pacheco is just I love watching his style. The number one is Chris Jones. I mean, I don't give a rat's you know what about all this stuff during the summer, and I could care less. That guy is an awesome player. He's been everything you could ever have asked for as a chief, as a leader, all that stuff. And also, like, honorable mention to Trey Smith, who, man, just paves the road.
Yeah.
Like, Humphrey's the best of their alignment, and Tooney's number 2. But, like, man, when Trey Smith really gets the goods on somebody, it's one of the best things that happens all game long. You know, that block he had on the Pacheco run, that guy's still getting up.
Yeah.
Like, I love when Trey Smith just pulls out and destroys somebody, man. It's fun to watch. But yeah, give me those 3. Give me Bolton, give me Pacheco, and give me Chris Jones.
Love it. Love it. For me, on the defensive side of the ball, I got to go L'Jarius Sneed. Much in the way that you really like Pacheco. I love the way Sneed plays.
Yeah.
Hard nose, versatile player, just kind of a blue collar guy, gets the job done without a ton of flash, but he can do it all. So he's really fun to watch. And I'm going to go to the offensive line. Joe Tooney, tough as nails, great player, can play inside, can play tackle if he needs to, can play with a club on his hand all season long. Really big fan of his. And then I gotta go Creed Humphrey, man. I hope he's a Chief for life. Great player, great hair, just everything you want. He's everything you want in an offensive lineman. You know what I mean? Like when you like think of an offensive lineman in a lab and what you want him to look like and how you want him to behave and all that stuff, it's Creed Humphrey, man. Love that dude.
Creed Humphrey. It's also hilarious that he was on SNL. I know they cut out the whatever, but it's it's on YouTube, so he might as well have been on SNL. It's hysterical. By the way, as we wrap this, I'm looking. I always am on Twitter during these just to make sure we're not missing anything that came out. Dick Butkus passed away at 80 years old.
Oh, this, yeah.
And I gotta say, had the pleasure of talking with Dick once. It was actually on Sack in the Box. It was on our podcast, and he came on, and he was gracious, and he was a ton of fun. I know there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who are probably like, who is Dick Butkus? If you don't know, go to YouTube, type in Dick Butkus, and go watch some of his highlights. He would be fined for about every hit he ever had nowadays. Not even so much because they were dirty, just as violent as they were. Like, Butkus was, you could make a really good argument, the greatest inside linebacker in NFL history. I would make the argument, frankly. Dick Butkus, if he would have stayed healthier and his knees betrayed him as his career went on, he just was beat up. He was an unbelievable talent. Like, not like a great player, not a really good player, like an all-time, arguably top 10 in NFL history. I mean, regardless of position, right? That level of player. Only played 9 seasons, was an 8-time Pro Bowler. How great was he? He made the all-decade team in the 60s and the 70s, despite the fact that he played from 65 through 73. So he missed half the 60s and most of the 70s and was still named to the all-decade teams in both. Was just an unbelievable talent, 5-time first-team All-Pro. Somebody who deserves recognition, as one of the greatest players to ever live. So, unfortunately, gone at the age of 80, but just wants to. Dick Butkus was pleasure to speak with, and also one of the greatest football players to ever live.
Yeah, may he rest in peace, and our best to all of his loved ones during a tough time, we know. Yeah, and before we get out of here, everybody, just want to thank you for your support. You got to subscribe to the Arrowhead Addict YouTube channel. If you want to make sure that you're alerted the second that we go live, sometimes we do for an emergency podcast, all those things, make sure you're liking and subscribing on the YouTube channel, on iTunes, and check out, we've got a premiere narrated by yours truly, the History of Travis Kelce video. That's dropping at 5:30 Central, so in about 15 minutes. So you can just hang out, rewatch some of this if you want to, and then check out that premiere coming up on the Arrowhead Addict YouTube channel. Great work by our producers here, Sean Daly in particular, and worked really hard on it. So hats off to him, and hope you all enjoy it. All right, Verderame, thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you again on Sunday. Godspeed tonight. If at least you don't have to write about it. And hats off to producer Richard for taking care of us and keeping this thing rolling, especially during the early technical difficulties. All right, everybody, we will be back on Sunday for our Chiefs pregame show, halftime show, and postgame show. We'll see you then. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.